Welcome to another lore video. It's been a while because we've basically been plodding along with the war and I haven't really felt that there's been much to report lore-wise. But now we are at, well, what may be a turning point, or at least the stage where we're pushing the threat back a step, and a couple of things have happened in the story. A few story-related events have happened whose meaning and impact is not immediately apparent, and it's very much a question of seeing where they will lead and their effects on other things. I suppose it's typical that even though an alien invasion is threatening a significant portion of human space, that the superpowers, or at least factions in support of them, are still more interested in sniping at each other than the common enemy. I suppose this is realistic within the framework of the overall dystopia. Various interests see the war as a distraction, and that gives them the chance to settle old scores and enrich themselves in the process and expand their power base. So it does fit in with the usual cynical view of human nature that's part and parcel of a dystopian future. I'm on the side that says priorities, guys. What's the point in power grabs if the aliens are going to wipe you out anyway? What's your power worth when you're dead? So old scores are being settled, and the last two community goals have been triggered by an event from the past in this way. Going back to January last year, when there was a community goal between Zemina Torval and Kane Massey over mining rights, shortly after Torval declared independence from her former partners and cousins at Mastopoulos Mining, gave up her position as major shareholder with them, and handed over the reins of her new company to her daughter. She lost the community goal for those mining rights, and to all intents and purposes, that was the end of that story. But then in the last couple of weeks, the CEO of Kane Massey was assassinated and Torval was blamed for it. A community goal ran basically to see who won the argument, with both outcomes accidentally released, so we know that the story would have changed had Torval won, and instead of being an assassin she hired, it would have been someone setting her up or something. This is an example of player agency affecting some part of the story, but not the overall direction, because these events are simply to spark off a clash between the superpowers, and that was going to happen regardless. As we can see from the community goal that follows it this week, we have Federation and Empire aligned factions now fighting to control a system which is said to be important to the war effort as a key distribution point for AX weapons and supplies. That community goal is running for the usual week. It's interesting that they chose this particular event to spark more rivalry between Fed and Empire factions. It seems to have come out of left field a bit. Whether it was a plan all along or whether that old community goal has been retconned into being a catalyst for the current conflict, who can say, but if they are going to go with a superpower infighting as a narrative, then something had to start it, and so it may as well be Torval and Massey as anyone else, and could even be a hint, with Torval being a power play person, that it could even be a hint at some future power play revamp, which is sorely overdue, and which people have been calling out for a long time now. On to the war, and there have been some tough invasion systems to clear. Some have only had outposts, so not being able to use large ships has made progress slower for rescues and deliveries. Some stations have been very far away from the main star, and the Thargoid interdictions have been brutal and ruthless, plus the extra travel time has impacted on how fast you clear those systems, even if you get a clean run. All kinds of factors have kept the logistics of clearing any given system on its toes, but with the last patch making alerts easier to clear, the number of re-invasions is finally dropping. And this has been due to a couple of things. Firstly, the last patch made alerts easier to clear by reducing the work needed, but still kept it at a reasonable level, so they're not stupidly easy either. Secondly, the number of alerts overall has dropped, with there being 40 each week for the last couple of weeks, 5 new ones around each maelstrom every Thursday. Rescues, deliveries, tissue sampling, salvage, and whatever AX you can find, particularly if you can find and kill Orthruses, are all being employed to clear alert systems, and they are all working well. The patch has also changed the focus of the Thargoid expansion, so they're taking fewer uninhabited systems, which by inference implies that the systems they do take will be more inhabited ones than not, And this is being borne out by the last 2 weeks as well. While there are still unpopulated alerts popping up on Thursdays, all 5 alerts around Tyrannus on Thursday the 13th of April last week were populated, and so rescues and deliveries could be used to clear them. A concerted effort by the Marauder Vanguard, Brazilian League of Pilots, Hive, Operation Ida, ourselves and the Steel Wolves, amongst many others, cleared all 5 alerts around Tyrannus by Tuesday afternoon. This week there are 3 populated and 2 unpopulated alerts around Tyrannus, so the trend is holding with some variability still kept in there by whatever algorithm they're using to decide that. So there's a good chance that the majority of systems alerted will be populated ones, and so rescues and deliveries can still play a part in clearing them. Otherwise it's down to AX, salvage and tissue sampling. The only systems to be invaded now will be any populated alerts that don't get cleared or invasions carrying over that were already underway. So, having reached the stage where we are stopping re-invasions, we are now at the stage where we are dealing with alerts rapidly as they happen, but of course this is only moving the problem one step along, because this doesn't stop systems being re-alerted. For that, we need to clear out the controlled systems around human space. This is slowly happening, with more and more of them being focused on by players, but it's going to be massive and ongoing. The Thargoids have taken a lot of territory. It's not without its problems though, and 2 main problems come to mind. The first is Burnout, pure and simple. Groups like our friends, the Marauders Vanguard and AXI, they may be large, but they've also been fighting since the end of November. 5 months now. The irony is that now we are approaching this turning point, AX is needed more than ever, and burning out just on the point of turning things around is not what we need, but nor can you push people to stick it out for just a little longer if they're already exhausted by it. In that sense, you could say that this stage of the war has run for long enough, and it's time for the next stage to begin. For me, it's been held in check before we've been allowed to move on by making alerts and controlled systems artificially difficult up until the last patch, and now they've made them easier and we are moving on just in time for the next update. Draw your own conclusions. The other problem is as the need for other activities is reduced, it becomes more and more about AX as time goes by. For people who want a non-combative way of taking part, their options become more and more limited. And I'm not just saying this because I'm the coordinator of a rescue squad. I'm no expert by any means, but I do dabble in a bit of AX from time to time, so I'm not completely averse to it. So I'm not saying this on behalf of myself or my squad, I'm saying this on behalf of any player who, for any reason at all, doesn't want to fight the Thargoids in any way. Even tissue sampling involves facing off against them, and there are simply people who have no interest in doing that. And it's easy to say, well, they can just avoid it. A lot of the bubble is still unaffected by the war. Nowhere out in the black's affected by it. But that's not really an answer. That's just saying if you don't like it, don't do it. Nor is it true to say that if you don't want to fight, that means you don't like the war. Plenty of people, including me, do like the war and the interesting story possibilities it brings, and simply wish for more activities to do besides fighting. They're not mutually exclusive positions. And there are plenty of ways in which this could be done. Soldiers win battles, but logistics wins wars. There could be missions to keep the flow of information going, vital in wartime. Picking up people important to various war efforts who've become stranded and taking them to safety. Discovering or being sent to look for mission or time-critical information to make sure support gets to where it needs to be, or to ensure an emergency call for help gets through. Recovering black boxes to discover what went wrong so that future operations can learn and improve. Rescues on foot. Lots of new situations could be added with a little imagination, and none of them would require a massive rework of what we have already. In some of the signal sources are NPC ships that need repairing, but doing it doesn't seem to achieve anything. Salvaging escape pods and black boxes is a painfully slow process and doesn't seem to do a lot either, so there's no real incentive to do it compared to other things that have been shown to work much better, like tissue sampling, which seems to be the new meta for clearing any system. Before Darren left FDev, he spoke on Frameshift Live about doing more with these scenarios in signal sources, and this was later echoed by Tom, so I'm hopeful that the update will be expanding on these activities. I'd be happy to take a ship with a multi-limpet controller or a universal one and go from signal source to signal source, repairing people, salvaging items, finding lost intel, finding lost people, and so on, if it was giving me any indication that it was doing something to move the progress bar in that system. It's an area that's ripe for expansion and for new and interesting situations to happen, so I do hope it's not just talk and the update really builds on this. Even if it's nothing more than turning these situations into mini scenarios, like the mini scenarios around some of the megaships now, where you either repair the hull breaches or release the escape pods for the NPC ships to pick up. Even if they go no further than that, and make them into little scenarios like those, doing them would be some kind of validation that these activities are meaningful and worth the time spent on it. Whether new activities appear or not, we'll obviously have to wait and see, but in this week's Frameshift Live we did get teased with one new piece of content. A new Thargoid. Whether an interceptor or a scout isn't clear. It appears to be a mixture of both, being around the size of a medium ship and very, very fast like a scout, but also with the shutdown field and lightning attack from an interceptor. A new kind of hybrid? Could be. I've linked to the footage below if you haven't seen it. What it's actually called we obviously don't know yet, but players have already nicknamed it the Shuriken. It does look a lot like a throwing star, or that thing from Krull that he used to kill his enemies with, as Burr pointed out on his video. The footage shows it attacking somebody's Crate Mark II in HIP 2567. That's the Indra Maelstrom. Will this thing only be found in Maelstroms, or elsewhere as well? Does it have a special role to play like the Orthrus does? If the Orthrus is a data collector and intelligence gatherer, the Shuriken could also have a special purpose. Are they going to be rare encounters, only seen in certain systems or locations? Or will they be more commonplace? The next stage of penetrating the Maelstroms will be finding a way to bypass or negate the energy wave that throws you back as you approach the centre, and this is what we know Aegis are looking into at the moment. Perhaps the Shuriken represents the next level of security to be defeated before finding whatever's in the centre. A few of these as fast attack craft could be the equivalent of Thargoid Special Forces, and from what we see of their speed and agility, they'd give even the most hardcore AX pilots a bit of a headache, so maybe that's what they are, maybe they're a kind of Thargoid SAS. They could even represent the next stage of Thargoid Interceptor. Perhaps they're what the Maelstroms have been spending the last few months creating. We know that the Thargoids are adaptable, but they only seem to use that adaptability selectively. They adapted to the Proteus wave rapidly, but they've allowed drones to be killed by Guardian weapons for years, and they still do. The best anti-Xeno ships are usually considered to be the medium ones that are powerful, agile, or both, with the Crate Mark II and the Chieftain at the top of most people's list. Perhaps this new craft represents the next wave of Interceptor, where they've learned that their size and turning speed puts them at a disadvantage, and so they've come up with this, a medium-sized, fast and extremely agile ship, quicker than a scout, with the defences of an interceptor. It may be like the Orthrus and have no hearts to destroy it, so it can only be overcome with outright damage. It could have all kinds of new properties that we'll have to wait and see. Whole new ship builds may have to be created just to fight them. That said, I'll give it about an hour from somebody first encountering one to builds being posted to kill it with. Maybe 2 hours. 4 if they do a video. May the 9th is a big day for the update, so for the next 2 weeks we will be plugging away at the alerts, having a go at the controlled systems, finding out what our realistic chances are of preventing them, and seeing if we can clear a bit of a space around human systems before pushing the systems back and reducing the ones under each Maelstrom's control. We shifted the work from preventing invasions to trying to prevent alerts, and that process will continue regardless of what else the update brings. More teasers may or may not be released through social media, but in the meantime we still have a lot of Thargoid territory to reclaim, and that job needs doing regardless of what else appears in the update. This is a long way from over. Thanks for watching.